Terms to ponder in crime detection and investigation. Set A. Compiled by Rosalind T. Lopez. It is the collection of facts in order to identify the suspect, locate his whereabouts and provide evidence of his guilt.
That is, criminal investigation.
A police activity, directed toward the identification and apprehension of alleged criminals, and the accumulation, preservation, and presentation of evidence regarding their alleged crimes.
It still refers to criminal investigation.
This simply means that investigator must know the elements of crime, understand and be able to apply investigative techniques, and be able to work with many different types of people.
That is intellectual characteristics.
The three tools in criminal investigation, whereby their application varies in proportion on their necessity to establish the guilt of the accused in a criminal case.
These are information, interview, and instrumentation.
An escapee who can be legally arrested without the necessity of a warrant of arrest.
Fugitive.
The action of initiating a meticulous inquiry to a formal complaint filed by the private aggrieved party or public complainant after the fact of the incident, but no arrest can be legally effected against the suspect, as the circumstances attendant thereto are not those specifically allowed by law.
It refers to police investigation.
The simplest and most effective way of showing actual measurements, and identifying significant items of evidence in their location at the crime scene.
It is sketch.
What is the investigation conducted by the investigator, or group of investigators, in the area where the crime is committed? Sketching, photographing, measuring, searching, and collecting of evidences are some of the common things usually done by the investigator.
Answer: crime scene investigation.
What type of search should be applied when the crime scene is divided into 4 quadrants, and each searcher is assigned to every quadrant?
Answer is zone.
What kind of sketch is made by the sketcher or investigator at the crime scene?
That is rough sketch.
It refers to the photographs of criminals available in the police station, that are shown to a witness for possible identification.
That is Rouge Gallery.
The question, how, in the cardinal points of investigation can answer?
Modus operandi.
Collected facts establishing that a crime has been committed and that some other person responsible.
Refers to Corpus Delicti.
What is the color of police blotter intended for general use?
It is color blue.
What is the color of police blotter maintained for offenses requiring confidentiality, like violence against women and children, and those cases involving a child in conflict with the law, to protect their privacy?
That is color pink.
The application of the same or substantially the same pattern, plan, system, of a particular offender, in committing a crime is known as
modus operandi.
Releases the crime scene to the officer on case, is the function of
first responder.
The good and harmonious relationship between the interviewer and interviewee, which serves as a door for overflowing information coming from the subject.
That is, wrapper.
It provides the view of the crime scene and its environment, including roads, neighboring buildings, and location of house.
That is, sketch of locality.
The ability of the witness to positively identify and remember how the criminal looks like. Its distinct physical features, particularly his face and body build, are very significant.
It refers to retention.
A statement made by a dying patient to the attending physician, in reference to the person who inflicted injury on him, is known as
dying declaration.
Its purpose is to prevent entry of unauthorized persons at the crime scene.
Cordons.
To describe evidence and its location on appropriate bag or envelope is the duty of
Evidence custodian.
It is the systematic process of identifying, preserving, and evaluating information, for the purpose of bringing the criminal offender to justice.
That is, criminal investigation.
A vigorous questioning of one who is reluctant to divulge information.
It refers to interrogation.
The police lineup has its purpose of eliminating the power of suggestion, as a factor in identification. As a procedure, how many persons is needed in such lineup?
7 to 10 persons.
The explanations of all symbols used to identify object in a sketch.
It refers to legend.
It assumes jurisdiction in terms of conducting crime scene investigations of sensational crimes.
Scene of the crime operations or SOCO.
A confession made inside the court during trial. It is usually voluntary and therefore admissible evidence of high degree.
It refers to judicial confession.
This method is more commonly known as identification by photographic files.
That is, Rouge Gallery.
It pertains to the number of persons who have access to the evidence on hand, from the time it was discovered, collected, stored, and examined, until its presentation in court.
It refers to chain of custody.
This is a confession made outside of the court prior to the trial of the case. That is,
extra-judicial confession.
Part of the investigation report, that gives a brief summary of the major investigation steps accomplished.
Synopsis.
In the art of investigation, the use of the instruments and state-of-the-art equipment for processing physical evidence is called
instrumentation.
The application of scientific and modern techniques in collecting and analyzing physical evidence is termed as
forensic.
It refers to the specific habit, techniques, or peculiarities, characterizing the methods or procedures employed in carrying out the criminal act.
It refers to modus operandi.
An extrajudicial confession obtained from a suspect is admissible in a court of law, if it was made in the presence of a counsel of his own choice, and must be in
writing.
The questioning of a person in a formal and systematic way, and is most often used to question criminal suspects, to determine their probable guilt or innocence.
It refers to interrogation.
The process of bringing together in a logical manner all evidence collected during the investigation, and presented to the prosecutor.
That is, case preparation.
A searching method, wherein the searchers follow each other along the path of a spiral, beginning on the outside, and spiraling in toward the center.
That is, spiral search.
It includes the practice of issuing an invitation to a person, who is investigated in connection with an offense he is suspected to have committed, without prejudice to the liability of the inviting officer for any violation of law.
That is, custodial investigation.
An interrogation technique, wherein the subject is being continuously praised, with the hope that through speaking the subject in a positive light, he or she will provide the necessary information.
It refers to pride and ego up approach.
A police interrogation tactics that involve eliciting information from the suspect, by emphasizing potential consequences for refusing to admit guilt, presenting false evidence, or accusing the suspect of having committed the act.
That is, maximization technique.
An interrogation technique that entails minimizing the suspect's hand in the crime, and the associated consequences of his or her actions, for the purposes of eliciting a confession.
That is, minimization technique.
Questions that interrogators may use to indirectly gain from suspects confirmation of incriminating information. This is because, in answering this kind of questions, subject may inadvertently accept and confirm background information in the question.
It refers to presupposition-bearing questions.
Any vehicle propelled by any power other than muscular power using the public highways, but exempting road rollers, trolleys, cars, street sweepers, bulldozers, graders, forklifts, cranes, vehicles which runs only on rails or trucks, tractors, trailers, and traction engine.
Refers to motor vehicles.
Areas within the roadway, constructed in manner to establish physical channels, through which vehicular traffic is guided, that will segregate pedestrian.
Refers to traffic island.
A device, mounted on a fixed or portable means of words or symbols, officially created and installed, for the purpose of regulating, warning and guide traffic.
Refers to traffic signs.
Intended to warn road users of danger on the road, and to inform them of its nature.
Warning signs.
Intended to inform road users of special obligations, instructions, or prohibitions which must be complied.
Regulatory signs.
The place and time when the objects involved in the accident finally come to rest without application of power.
Final position.
The Land Transportation and Traffic Code of the Philippines.
RA number 4136.
The new Anti-Carnapping Act, that was enacted on July 17, 2016, thereby repealing RA number 6539.
That is, RA number 10883.
It refers to the movement of persons, goods, and vehicles, either powered by combustion system or animal drawn, from one place to another, for the purpose of safe travel.
Refers to traffic.
It is responsible in regulating transport routes, granting, denying, suspending, or cancelling land transport franchises.
That is, Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board.
An agency of the government, in charge with the administration and issuance of licenses for driving vehicles in the traffic road.
Land Transportation Office or LTO.
Marks left on the road by tires when the brakes are strongly applied.
Skid marks.
It is used to establish the necessary distance between you and the vehicle ahead, in order to avoid collision with the said vehicle.
That is, 2-second rule.
A classification of traffic control device, used to inform the road user of potentially hazardous roadway conditions.
That is, warning device.
It is an occurrence in a sequence of events, that usually results in unintended damage to property, injuries, or death, especially when motor vehicles and pedestrians are involved.
Accident.
It is an event, wherein two or more vehicles physically make contact with one another, with sufficient force to create damage.
Collision.
A modern urban system of roadway above street level for free flow of traffic.
Skyway.
It is responsible for determining traffic flow patterns, through origin and destination of person and things, planning, approving, funding and constructing of roads.
Department of Public Works and Highways, DPWH.
A signal operating device either manually or electrically operated, by which traffic is alternatively commanded to stop or to proceed.
Traffic light.
It is the entire width between the boundary lines of every way that is publicly maintained, and is open to the use of the public for the purposes of vehicular travel.
That is, highway.
The law, which requires the mandatory compliance by motorists of private and public vehicles, to use seat belt devices, and requires vehicle manufacturers, to install seat belt devices in all their manufactured vehicles.
RA. Number 8750.
In traffic enforcement, it is the act of taking a motor vehicle as a consequence of traffic law violation.
That is, impounding.
What principle in traffic, which allows a vehicle or pedestrian to go ahead against another vehicle or pedestrian?
Right of way.
Who are authorized to use vehicle with blue plates?
Diplomats.
A term used to denote any vehicle used for commercial purposes without any franchise.
Colorum.
An accident, which is always accompanied by an unidentified road user, who usually flees immediately after the said collision.
Hit and run accident.
The conveying of person, goods, and things from one place to another.
Transportation.
When a holder of a driver's license needs to be accompanied by a person with normal hearing, what should be the indicated condition in his license?
E. accompanied by a person with normal hearing.
If the plate number of a motor vehicle is AVC 563, what week of the month should it be registered?
Second.
If the plate number of a motor vehicle is TGP 688, what month should it expires?
August.
What is that point or place, where two or more, either single or double or multi-lanes certainly meet at a point?
That is, intersection.
The proof that one is given permission by the Land Transportation Office to operate a vehicle on public highways.
Driver's license.
An act creating the Department of Information and Communications Technology.
Republic Act No. 10844.
Any public thoroughfare, public boulevard, driveway, avenue, park, alley, but shall not include roadway upon grounds owned by private individuals, colleges, universities, or other similar institution.
Refers to highway.
A systematic examination of all facts relating to condition, action and physical features associated with motor collision or accident.
Traffic accident investigation.
That portion of highway designed or ordinarily used for vehicular travel.
That is, roadway.
A classification of motor vehicle accident, which is usually characterized by a motor vehicle falling on the roadside, or on a cliff along mountainous roads.
Running off-road.
These are constructed along intersections or rotundas, for purposes of turning around.
Rotary island.
Special plate numbers for government officials, particularly, for Senate President of the Philippines.
Number 3.
A harmful conduct or habit, the indulgence, or which leads to depravity, wickedness and corruption of the mind and body.
Vice.
A derivative of opium which is used as a cough reliever.
Codeine.
The return to a previous bad condition or a worse way of life after making an improvement.
Relapse.
Drugs discovered by Friedrich Sertena.
Morphine.
STP means serenity, tranquility, and
Peace.
it is also known as the poor man's cocaine.
That is, shabu.
A temporary slip, failure, or break in continuity. Taking a drug even at once after undergoing treatment and recovery program for substance use disorder.
That is, lapse.
It is a drug extracted from the peyote cactus.
Mescaline.
Marijuana is for hallucinogen, cocaine is for
Stimulant.
a degree of intoxication, wherein the subject is in a state of unconscious or in stupor condition.
Coma.
A person who acts as agents of prostitution.
Pimp.
A consideration placed on gambling games.
Bet.
Refers to a person who manages or owns houses of ill repute, whereby the business of prostitution is conducted.
Operator.
Increasing the dosage of drugs to maintain the same effect.
Tolerance.
A sex drug, whose chemical name is methylenedioxymethamphetamine.
Ecstasy.
The process of undergoing or producing gradual chemical change which later becomes sour or alcoholics.
Fermentation.
The amount of drug that will cause death.
Lethal dose.
Amount of drugs needed to treat or heal. The smallest amount of a drug that will produce a therapeutic effect.
Minimal dose.
The drugs that can be purchased from any pharmacy or drugstore without written authorization from a doctor.
Over-the-counter or OTC drugs.
It is known as the king of all drugs.
Alcohol.
It is also known as angel dust.
Phencyclidine or phenylcyclohexylpiperidine, PCP.
Refers to the drugs that can stimulate defecation and encourage bowel movements.
Laxatives.
It is an active component of tobacco.
Nicotine.
It is present in tea and coffee and also in some wake-up pills.
Caffeine.
What is the Spanish-Mexican term for marijuana?
Marijuana.
The coca bush plant is scientifically known as
Erythroxylin coca.
the psychoactive ingredient in marijuana which causes the high trip of the users.
Tetrahydrocannabinol.
Named after the Greek god of dreams, it is obtained from opium.
Morphine.
The Comprehensive Dangerous Drugs Act of 2002.
RA number 9165.
Drugs that produce perceptual alteration, varying emotional change, thought disruption, and ego distortion. They are called psychedelics.
Hallucinogens.
Drugs which produce insensibility, stupor, melancholy, or dullness of the mind with delusions.
Narcotics.
The most potent derivative from opium.
Heroin.
Placing drug under the tongue, allowing it diffuse into the capillaries and enters the blood circulation directly.
Sublingual.
Placement of the drug via the anus to be absorbed at the rectal mucosa.
Rectal.
Introduction of drugs directly into the cerebrospinal fluid.
Intrathecal.
The application of drugs directly to a body site such as the skin and the mucous membrane.
Topical.
The introduction of drugs into the deeper layers of the skin by the use of special type of electric current for local effect.
Iontophoresis.
If you're not willing to learn, no one can help you. If you're determined to learn, no one can stop you. This brings me to the end of my presentation.